How full is your stadium on a weekly basis? Let's find out. Guys, welcome back to another video on the channel. We did this concept last season and I thought it would be a fun one to do early on this year. Basically, what I've gone ahead and done is I've taken each championship club's stadium capacity and we're ranking that up against their average attendance so far this season. And that then goes ahead and tells us just how full, or in some scenarios, empty, each championship stadium has actually been so far this season. Now these numbers will continue to change and fluctuate throughout the season, and so at the end of the year we will do an update on this one. And it is worth noting that away fan figures do count towards the number of fans in that average attendance, which can be a help or a hindrance to some of these figures. Without any further ado though, let's jump in. Coming in at the bottom of the pile and with the biggest proportion of empty seats in the championship, it's Blackburn Rovers, who only managed to fill 49.9% of their stadium on a weekly basis. Now Ewood Park is absolutely huge, it holds over 31,000 fans, and with Blackburn averaging just over 15,500 fans on a weekly basis, that does leave over half the stadium empty on a match day. When we went ahead and did this video last season, Blackburn also came in at the bottom of the pile, and I think there's a couple of reasons for that. Obviously, Ewood Park being as big as it is the main contributing factor, but I also think ticket prices for Blackburn as well. If you compare Blackburn and their ticket prices to a lot of the other clubs in the Northwest, Blackburn are substantially higher, which I definitely think turns some fans away from going week in, week out. Coming in 23rd place, we have Sheffield Wednesday, who only filled an average of 64.5% of Hillsborough on a weekly basis. Now obviously Hillsborough is one of the biggest stadiums in the Championship. It holds just shy of 40,000 fans, and Sheffield Wednesday so far this season have been averaging 25,700, which is one of the biggest fan bases in the Championship, but because of the size of Hillsborough, it does leave a lot of empty seats. And once again, what we were just speaking about with Blackburn there, I think that ticket prices will have put a lot of people off from Sheffield Wednesday this season. For Championship football, it's absolutely ludicrous what they're charging for some of the tickets. Obviously pricey to go in as an away fan as well. Definitely something that could be looked into there. Coming in 22nd place, we have Cardiff, who fill an average of 65.7% of their stadium on a weekly basis. The Cardiff City Stadium holding just over 33,000 fans so far this season. They've averaged just shy of 22,000 fans. Obviously a massive fan base, but another scenario where the stadium is just bigger than where that fan base is at right now in the Championship. Now in 21st place we do have Birmingham, who have filled an average of 67.8% of their stadium so far, but do take these numbers with Birmingham with quite a large pinch of salt, because there has been quite large redevelopment work going on at St Andrews for the past couple of years. They have been working at a reduced capacity, and these numbers are based on the overall attendance that St Andrews goes ahead and holds. So based on that figure, it seems as if a lot of empty seats are there, but those empty seats are currently being reworked, and so do take that figure with a pinch of salt. Coming in 20th place, we then have my side, Preston North End, who have filled an average of 72.1% of Deepdale so far this season. Obviously Deepdale holding over 23,000 fans when it's completely packed out. So far this season we've been averaging 6,800 in and around Deepdale. Now to be fair to North End, the fan base has been steadily growing over these past couple of seasons. We've definitely had a boost from cheaper season tickets. There's been more incentive to get younger fans on board as well, which I think has really helped rise the average attendances in at Deepdale, but compared to the size of the stadium, we're not quite there in filling it just yet. In 19th place we have Stoke City. So far this season they filled an average of 73% of their stadium. In at the Bet365 it holds just over 30,000 fans, and up until this point they've been averaging just shy of 22,000 on each game week. In 18th place we then got Coventry, who so far have sold an average of 74.1% of their seats. Now when we did this video last season, I think Coventry had only sold an average of around about 57% of that stadium, so these numbers have taken a huge bump up from then. Obviously we are judging it off a much smaller sample size, but Coventry did shift plenty of season tickets throughout the summer. I know a lot of Coventry fans took advantage of the early bird discount after obviously how good they were in the Championship last season, but with how big the Coventry Building Society Arena is, there's still plenty of seats to go ahead and fill. 17th place, we've got Huddersfield Town, who filled an average of 78.4% of the John Smith Stadium. Their attendance figures so far this season slightly up from last year's numbers. As things stand, they've averaged just over 19,000 fans in their matches so far. And with the John Smith Stadium holding around about 24,500, it means they've sold close to 80% of their stadium on a weekly basis. In 16th place, we have Millwall, obviously them being one of the most iconic grounds in the Championship. Not always been a happy hunting ground for Millwall so far this season. They've had an average attendance of just over 15,800, which means they've sold around about 78.9% of their stadium on a weekly basis. They have had a few dodgy results at home so far this season though, so Gareth out will be keen to turn that around. In 15th place, we've got the Middlesbrough fans, who do sell a large chunk of the Riverside considering how big it actually is. It's one of the bigger grounds in the Championship, holding over 33,000 fans. So far this season, Borough have averaged over 26,000 week in, week out, which means they've filled around about 79.6% of their stadium. Credit to the Borough fans that it's not been the easiest of starts to the new campaign, and especially with how expensive their tickets are. When we looked at each Championship club's most expensive season tickets at the start of the season, Borough were third in that list, so paying a pretty penny, but always good support Borough, both at home and on the road. In 14th place, we've got Swansea, the first club to fill over 80% of their stadium on a weekly basis so far this season. They've filled an average of 81% of their ground on a match day up until this point, with the Swansea.com stadium holding just over 21,000 fans. They've averaged just over 17,000 so far. Feels like everything at Hull City has been on that general upwards curve since the new ownership came in. I know that there have been a few bumps along the road, but talking about performances on the pitch, the feel-good factor around the club, and generally speaking just how many tickets have actually been sold, if we compare these sort of average figures to how Hull were faring towards the end of the previous ownership, it's absolutely night and day. Hull have averaged over 21,000 fans in home matches so far this season, which means they filled 83.1% of the ground. In at the midway point, we have Bristol City, who have filled an average of 85.5% of Ashton Gate. Must admit, I do really like Ashton Gate. It's quite a fun away day going to Bristol as well. Ashton Gate holds exactly 27,000 fans, and so far this season, Bristol City have averaged just over 23k with the away fans included. Coming in 11th place, we then have the QPR fans in at Loftus Road. They've filled an average of 85.6% of that ground so far. Obviously, QPR do benefit in this scenario from having one of the smaller grounds in the Championship. Obviously, Loftus Road been a really tight ground, holding just over 18,000 fans so far this season. They've sold an average of 15,700 tickets. Into the top 10, and this is where the numbers start to get really interesting. In 10th place, we have the Watford fans, who have sold an average of 86.1% of Vicarage Road so far this season. Vicarage Road holding just over 21,500 fans so far this season. Watford are averaging around about 18,500. In 9th place, we've got Sunderland, who have by far and away both the biggest stadium and biggest average attendances, so fair play for Sunderland for getting this high in the list, considering the Stadium of Light holds over 48,000 fans. Unbelievable numbers in that ground this season. They've averaged 42,000, which is absolutely incredible. 86.3% of the stadium filled. For Championship level, that's absolutely next level, but there are some other sides who have a bigger, higher percentage of their stadium filled. In 8th place, it's West Brom in at the Hawthorns, with the Hawthorns holding just over 26,000. They've averaged just over 23,000 fans so far this season, meaning that 86.7% of their ground has been filled. Do like an away trip to the Hawthorns. I think it's a nice ground. In 7th place, we have Plymouth. Now, as we get into the top 7, these are the sort of grounds where the home end will be packed out week in, week out, and it's usually up to the away fans to make up the numbers in actually going ahead and filling the stadium. So with Plymouth, home park holds just over 18,000 fans, and the average so far this season there has been 16,300. Obviously, depending on how many away fans come and top that number up towards the end, but all in all, that means that 89.9% of their ground is filled week in, week out. Similar situation with Southampton in at St Mary's as well. We'll expect the home end to be packed week in, week out. Obviously, with St Mary's holding just over 32,000, Southampton have averaged 29,400 so far this season, meaning that at 90.8% of the ground is full. Coming in 5th place, we then have Rotherham United, the smallest ground in the Championship, but Rotherham are packing that out week in, week out. It only holds 12,000 fans, but the average attendance there so far this season has been 11,100. That means that over 93% of the stadium is completely full. Of course, Leeds were going to be high up on today's video. They make their way into 4th place once again. Week in, week out, we are seeing the home end there really packed out, and it's up to the away fans really to go ahead and fill the complete capacity. Ellen Road holds just over 37,000 fans. Leeds have averaged 35,700 so far this season, meaning that a massive 94.3% of the ground is full on a match day. In at Carrow Road, you get even closer to 100%. Carrow Road holding over 27,000 fans. They've averaged 26 and a bit so far this season. Real credit to the Norwich fans, by the way, because their season tickets at the start of the year were absolutely extortionate, by far and away the most expensive of any Championship club. So fair play to the Norwich fans for regularly selling out as many season tickets as they do. But Norwich are pipped to 2nd place by their rivals Ipswich Town. They filled an average of 97.2% of their stadium. Massive attendances in at Portman Road this season. It really feels like we're watching the revival of Ipswich Town. The difference in the mood and atmosphere, the playing style around the club with Ipswich right now compared to when they were last in the Championship, it's absolutely night and day. Obviously, getting a ticket in the home end at Portman Road these days is absolute gold dust. It holds just shy of 30,000, and they've been averaging 28,800 fans so far this season. But coming in at the top of the tree, it is Leicester City in the King Power Stadium. This season, they filled an average of 97.9% of their ground in the home matches, which is absolutely outstanding. Obviously, the home end will regularly be packed out. Good away numbers travel there as well because it's a new ground for a lot of Championship fans. The average attendance there in at the King Power so far this season has been 31,500 or just above, and with it holding just above 32,000, that means that the vast majority of seats are sold on a match day. But guys, there we have it. That will now wrap it up for today's video. If you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and do stick around and subscribe for some regular Championship content. Were you surprised about any of the numbers in this video? Do let me know down below. But apart from that, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you all in the next one.